Eagle is the highest flying bird in the world. The next day, a church member sent a text message to Pastor Nicken and said, I know I don't have the right to correct Pastor Sam, but he said something in church yesterday that the eagle is the highest flying bird in the world. That statement is not correct. As she was saying it, I was on my phone checking on Google. The person was right. Highest flying bird. I went back to church and I apologized. I told them, this is what one of you said. I checked it up. That's why we need to allow younger people into leadership, honestly, because
she's my fave. She can do no wrong. He's my absolute favorite. Anything he says is correct. Are you okay? Are people all right these days? This is 2024. Are you okay? Is there something wrong with the frontal lobe? Check. Did you bang your head? Even your father and your mother that bore you, you don't boast and brag and have such confidence in them, saying that anything they say or do, they do no wrong. But you will just find a pastor, go to their church or meet them online and say anything they say or do, they can do no wrong. And this is the challenge. It's said that 95% of people will rather die than think. They would rather die than think. So when they do wrong, you don't challenge, you can't even know because you're not thinking. The critical thinking skills completely gone. You don't want to think. And that's the problem many people have. Their children will also not think. To a significant extent, some of those children are even thinking more than their parents. How can you say someone can do no wrong? Are they God? And a lot of these people are psychophants. Psychophants, they're not helping these people. They're not helping pastors. If you have constructive feedback, give it to them. Let them hear. Why would you say somebody can do no wrong? One of the reasons I respect Pastor Sam Adeyemi, I've known him, I don't necessarily follow these days, but many years ago, I bought his books and I used to follow him on TV then. TV, all the social media wasn't very popular. He said once that he was preaching and he made a mistake about an eagle, saying it was the highest flying bird, but there are other birds that fly higher than the eagle. He went back to correct that error after somebody in the congregation corrected him. A lot of ministers can't do that these days. They are just too proud. In fact, there's no way for you to even tell them these sort of things. I met a pastor. I don't even know if I met him. And I'll explain. He came to preach at our church and he did something that I felt, I can tell him something about what he did to improve. But I didn't know him. I've never met him before. I've not seen him before. I've not heard his name before. But I knew somebody that knew him. At the end of the day, it's the work of the ministry. I knew somebody that knew him. So what did I do? I reached out to the person that knew him and said, this is my feedback. It's optional, unsolicited. However, I feel it's good feedback. Do you know this pastor? And it's not a young pastor. This pastor reached out to me. And we were able to have a conversation about, and even more, about that feedback. There was growth happening there because he was willing to. The Bible even says we should study to show ourselves approved. The Bible also tells us that in this end time there will be wolves in sheep's clothing. We must also be able to separate wheat from chaff. But no, we're so lazy, and critical thinking is a challenge. You will say to a human that anything you say. In fact, I've had it on some of my videos where someone would tell me that whatever Runke says is correct, and I'll go to their DM and say whatever I say may not always be correct. Please listen in case I say something that there's an error in it or there's a way I can improve. Because if I tell you something now, in a couple of years, if I learn something better, I will improve on it. If it's an error, I will say it. I know there was a pastor that said something, that did something about, was it wigs or something? I reached out for that feedback to be given to her, to apologize. We must be able to apologize. I don't understand what is going on these days when people can't say that they are wrong.
In Africa, like I said, we have the monarchical structure of government. It's like in the DNA of the average African. If you are not self-aware and purge yourself of it, that's the same structure you will produce. You produce it in your family, you produce it in your business. When you get into government, it's the same thing you will maintain. So it's in our churches. The people want to worship their leaders. The person that our people will respect or honor is the one that shows up and you have 20 protocol officers coming with the person. That's the person that our people will believe has the anointing. That's the one they want to touch the person's clothes while the protocol person's pushing them away and they're falling down and all that, sadly, because of the way culture works. If you don't go with that culture, you may not have a large following. If you go countercultural, you will pay the price for it. Although eventually it will pay you because you will have authentic, true leadership.
We're not God. We can make mistakes. It is okay. We are not infallible. We are mortals. As immortal as we want to think we are not immortal. And we must be able to receive feedback from people. That's why you find like some children, they just follow all these influencers, they're saying all this rubbish on social media. Your children are following them because they've never seen you question. They've never seen you reason. You are saying to them that, oh, if your pastor is unapproachable, there's a problem. If your pastor, there's no way, and I'm not talking about people that are cursing pastors. That's not what I'm talking about. People that have constructive feedback. Even if it's not direct, there must be somebody that you can reach to give that feedback. If they're unwilling to take feedback, it's a red flag. It is a red flag. I respect a lot of pastors. I do, and they do a good work. And we want them to do better work. But we must not be the sycophants in their life that will continue to push them to destruction. We must be people. Iron sharpeneth iron. What makes you think you don't have any iron? You don't have any value to give? What makes you think you have no value to give to a pastor? A lot of the pastors may have gone to Bible school, school of theology, whatever, but they may not have even platform skills. They may not have presentation skills. Some of them cannot even groom themselves properly, the way they speak and stuff like that. They have the word, yes. But there's finesse in some of those things. There's so many things that you can help your pastor, if they want to. I said they want it. But don't assume that they're perfect, because they're not perfect. Parenting is always the challenge, always the challenge. Because a lot of people have been raised just to, just that beggarly, that's, you're not good enough. Pastor this, pastor that, worshiping, idol. I'm not saying you should not give honor where honor is due. I do it where honor is due. You must give room. But you don't worship them. You don't put them on a pedestal. People don't like people like Daddy Freeze, very dark man. He's been arrested. And by the way, there's no freedom of speech in this world, not even Nigeria. There's no freedom of speech. Anybody that wants to think there is, well, good luck to you. A lot of pastors also don't like Daddy Freeze, especially when he was talking about the tithes. But the Christians that were wise, it helped them to study the word even more. These people will speak. Not everything they say I agree with. And you don't have to agree with everything anybody says. And so let's be careful. We have to be very, very careful. We have to be wise, like a serpent. And these people will say things that will make you go and study. People will abuse you from the pulpit. People will say things. They'll call you names. They'll give you instructions that are disempowering, toxic. But you take it on. And these things, they've been normalized. They're all on social media, not saying anything that is hidden behind the scenes. Some of the way that they speak down at you, condescending. With man of God, man of God, man of God, man of God. What's that? What is that? When Pastor Bolaji Dowu spoke, he said something, I can't remember what the message was. Daddy Freeze commented and said he spoke well. Yeah. I mean, it's not for him to validate Pastor Bolaji. He's doing a good job. It's not for Daddy Freeze to validate. My point is, if you back up your saying with the word and you understand it, people cannot argue with data. They can't. You must understand what it is that you're sharing and saying. You must. And that tithe is, should I want to talk about it? It's controversial because a lot of people don't understand it. Let me just drop that one. I don't even want to go into that because that's not my topic. My topic is that when you are not using the medulla oblongata, it's an act of foolishness. When you're not reading and studying, when you can't even say, in addition to what you said, or is it possible that this is another, can I share this perspective also? Instead of saying anything they say, boom, it's correct. Anything they may say some things that are correct and there's no feedback. Hooray, absolutely. They may say those things and yeah, it is possible. But when they say things that are not correct and they don't want to apologize, you don't want to give them feedback, nothing, you are leading them to a path of destruction. And that's why some of them are memes. That is why some of them are memes. In fact, I just saw one now, maybe I'll post it. Climbing the roof, internal roof of an uncompleted building, like Spider-Man. And they're hailing him, a pastor. And I'm wondering, are they going to say it's the Holy Spirit that did this one now? There's a lot of sickness out there, and we must be able to speak up and question and even know when to speak. Look at what is out there now. Men are winning bed-stressed women. We will keep quiet. Zip it. We don't know when to talk. Teach our children, be bold, be brave, be smart, be confident, be someone that thinks, and don't let anybody lead you astray.